Everyone warned me, but I thought it was just a silly legend. I mean, who really believes in curses, right? I figured it was all made up, just stories to scare people into staying away from a place that had nothing but trees and dirt. But here, I was, standing at the edge of the forest, the air thick with that strange cold feeling that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I wasn't here to test old superstitions or play into ghost stories, though. I was here for an adventure, to get away from the stress of everyday life. And my friends, of course, well, they had different reasons. Dave thought it would be a good bonding trip, while Megan just wanted to prove something. She always had, to be the bravest, the toughest. I couldn't help but laugh when she joked about how we'd probably just end up sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories, nothing to be afraid of. But as I looked at the darkening trees, the quiet that surrounded us like a heavy blanket, I couldn't shake off the feeling that maybe, just maybe, there was something to those stories. They say no one comes back from the forest unchanged, and I'd never been more certain that those words weren't just a warning. They were a promise. The moment we stepped into the forest, the air changed. The trees, thick and dense, swallowed. The light, casting long shadows that seemed to shift as we moved. It wasn't the usual forest smell, damp earth and fresh pine, but something colder, almost sterile. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up, and I swear the wind picked up, carrying with it the faintest sound of whispers. Dave, who'd been making jokes about how spooky this place was, fell quiet. His usual bravado seemed to shrink under the weight of the silence. Megan, however, marched ahead, trying to act unbothered, though I could see the slight tremble in her hands as she adjusted her backpack. She'd never admit it, but I knew she was nervous. I wasn't the only one who noticed the strange markings on the tree. A deep groove like something had clawed at it, but no animal in this forest could make scratches that deep. Probably just a bear, Dave muttered, but his voice didn't sound as confident as usual. We kept walking, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade. Every now and then, I could swear I saw something moving in the corner of my eye, just out of reach, but too quick to be a trick of the light. I wasn't the only one feeling it either. Megan kept glancing over her shoulder, her steps quickening, and then, as if the forest itself was waiting for something, the air went still. Not a single breeze. Not a sound. Okay, I'm starting to think this place is cursed, Dave said, his voice low and tense, and that's when I knew. He was no longer joking. We kept moving deeper into the forest, the trees growing older and taller with each step. They looked almost alive, their twisted branches reaching out like long, bony fingers. The deeper we went, the stranger the place felt. The wildlife didn't behave like normal animals. Birds fluttered too close to us, their beady eyes staring without blinking. Squirrels scampered past us, but there was no sound, not even the rustling of leaves. Just stillness. Dave tried to keep his usual nonchalant attitude, cracking jokes about how wildlife was just weird around here, but I could see it in his eyes. Something was off. Megan, on the other hand, was getting visibly anxious. She kept glancing around, her pace quickening, like she was eager to leave but didn't know which way to go. That's when we found it. An abandoned campsite. Tents collapsed in on themselves, as if they'd been left in a hurry. Food cans lay open and half-eaten, their contents long gone. No sign of any people, though. It was just wrong. The fire pit was cold, and yet the ashes were still dark and fresh, like they'd been smoldering only hours ago. We moved closer, inspecting what we could. Something scratched into the dirt caught my eye. Symbols. Strange looping patterns that didn't make any sense. It almost looked like a language, or a warning. Megan swore under her breath, tugging at my sleeve. "We should go back," she said, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. That's when I spotted it, tucked beneath a fallen log, a torn page from a journal. I hesitated, but something made me reach for it. The words were frantic, scribbled in a way that almost seemed desperate. "It's not just the trees. It's watching you, waiting. Whatever you do, don't stay after dark." I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just some prank or old camp story. This was real. We kept moving, our steps quickening as the sun dipped lower. The forest grew darker, more oppressive. A thick fog started to roll in, curling around our feet like something alive. Then, out of nowhere, we heard it. A distant cry. At first I thought it was an animal, but there was something off about it. Too human. It echoed through the trees, sending chills down my spine. We all froze, the sound hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Dave scoffed, his usual bravado slipping. "Probably just a raccoon," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Megan, who'd been silent for a while, was the first to move. She stepped forward, but her face was pale and her eyes were darting around, following shadows that didn't make sense. It was then that I saw it, a figure just on the edge of our vision, standing motionless in the distance. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as I focused, the figure didn't move. It wasn't an animal or a person. It was something else. The shadows seemed to cling to it, twisting unnaturally around its form. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Megan's hand gripped mine tightly. "What the hell is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. We all stared, too afraid to move. Then, a sudden gust of wind sent a strange metallic smell through the air, and in the blink of an eye, the figure was gone. But the oppressive atmosphere didn't lift. It only grew heavier, as if the forest itself was watching us now. That's when the first one disappeared. Dave. 1 minute he was standing right next to us, and the next, gone, vanished into thin air. We called his name, frantic, but no response. Not even a sound. Just the whispers in the trees and the distant eerie cries. "Where is he?" Megan gasped, her voice breaking. And that's when we realized the whispers, the shadows. They weren't just around us. They were following us. We were running now, panic in our every step, the forest pressing in on us from all sides. But the whispers were louder, closer. They didn't stop, didn't fade. The trees seemed to close in behind us, shifting and groaning like they were alive. Megan stumbled, her breath ragged as she gripped my arm. "What is this? What did we do?" she gasped. I didn't have an answer, only a growing dread that gnawed at my gut. There was something here, something older than the trees themselves, something that had always been waiting, and it was mad. Then I saw it. Through the fog, a figure. This time, it wasn't just a shadow. It was tall, monstrous, with limbs that twisted unnaturally, its face hidden behind a veil of darkness. The ground beneath us seemed to tremble. The whispers turned into guttural chants, rising in volume, in desperation. "We have to go," Megan screamed, pulling me back toward the path. But something stopped us. The ground. It was giving way beneath our feet. Cracks split open in the earth, like the forest itself was swallowing us whole. And then the twist came. "Wait," I whispered, my heart hammering in my chest. Megan froze, her face pale. "Do you remember the journal? The warning?" I suddenly realized. The curse. It wasn't something we stumbled into. We had awakened it. When we made camp, when we disturbed the abandoned site, we had triggered something deep in the forest, something tied to its history. Megan's eyes widened. No, we didn't. But I knew. The entity, the curse. It wasn't just a forest thing. It was tied to us, to our presence here. Before I could say another word, the ground cracked open beneath us, and Megan vanished into the abyss. The shadows were on me now, pulling, whispering, suffocating. There was no escape. I don't know how I got out. One moment I was falling into the darkness, my body fighting against the pull. And the next, nothing. Silence. I woke up alone, bruised, battered, and covered in cuts, with the taste of dirt and fear still in my mouth. The forest was gone, but I wasn't safe. The scar on my arm itched, a burn that hadn't healed. And every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear the whispers, the shadowy figures, the things that had followed us. Had they let me go? Or was I just another part of the curse? One that hadn't finished its work yet? I thought I escaped, but the forest hasn't let me go.